Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we have the new Tier 10 German large hybrid cruiser monstrosity abomination sin against mankind known as Hildebrand in the port to review for you guys. Today, Hildebrand is the very first Tier 10 German premium cruiser. And, well, they certainly chose to make a statement with her, I must say. So, yeah, the ship looks pretty interesting. It looks like some weird hybrid abomination between an Aegir and a Graf Zeppelin. So, yeah, and I have a lot of time with both ships, so we'll see what she's like when we take her into battle. But before we get too much further into this video, massive shout out to the channel's Patreon supporters. I am not a CC, so I do not get these ships for free from Wargaming in order to test them out for the review for you guys. We do have to purchase them with the generous funds that the Patreons do supply or from the ad revenue that the channel generates. Supporting the channel on Patreon is the best place to do so, besides, of course, just watching the streams and videos. If you feel like being oh so generous, the Patreon link is in the description down below. But let's take a look at the Hildebrand. So, I, like many of you, when this ship was announced, was pretty surprised that Wargaming went this route for the very first Tier 10 German cruiser. I was fully expecting, an Aegir with another turret bolted onto her deck, but no, they took the front half of an Aegir and the, about half of a Graf Zeppelin and bolted them together. So, yeah, I have not really read too much about this ship besides, of course, the initial dev blogs about her, and I've been following up on the changes that she's been going through during testing. But besides that, again, haven't played her, so we are going to, again, get a genuine first impressions of this ship. It's really interesting they have like the casemate 150s from the Graf Zeppelin on here and from like the dreadnoughts and such on the more modern like Aegir-esque hull. But yeah, so anyway, let's take a look at her stats, shall we, and her features. So she's a Tier 10 special ship, which means that, well, first off, the camo. This is the premium camo, and look, it is an actual camo, unlike a lot of camos we've been getting recently that's just gray, so props there, Wargaming. But anyway, yes, she is a Tier 10 special ship and is not a full-on premium ship, so she doesn't get the baked-in premium economic bonus, but she still gets the Tier 10 special ship bonus. So a 50% buff to the credits and 100% buff to your various XPs that you are earning. So again, while not a full-on premium ship, meaning she doesn't get the cost in post-battle service, she does still, again, earn more than your average Tier 10 ship, most definitely. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the armor, alright? 27mm nose, 27mm bow deck, 90mm upper armor belt, 190mm casemate belt. Is that the Citadel belt right there? No, it's not. Okay. It's probably the turtleback armor. 190mm upper torpedo protection, 30mm lower torpedo protection, 27mm stern, 27mm stern deck. The flight deck is 30. Ooh, that is going to get farmed by a lot at Tier 10. And then the hangar deck is 19mm. So just like, of course, the Kearsarge and other hybrid ships, this hangar is just going to be an absolute chunk spot for this ship's HP pool. Look, the conning tower is actually up here, 200mm thick. And the turret faces are 360. Angled plate is 150. Tops are 130, sides are 220, angled sides are 150, and the rear is 220. So let's take a look at that Citadel. It's probably buried. Yeah, look at that. So there it is. Take away all of that stuff. And, yep, a little bit of turtleback there. And then there is the Citadel. 45mm plating on the side, but of course with the additional armor, that takes it up to 190. And then, again, with that upper torpedo belt, 190mm there as well. So, I mean, like, I'm sure if you catch the side with something big enough, it's going to get chunked, obviously. But should be fairly Citadel tanky, at least, if you get what I'm saying. Like, Citadel won't get pierced a lot, but, I mean, it's, again, very similar to the Aegir armor. So you're going to eat pins if you showed too much broadside, of course. All right. So survivability, she has 63,650 hit points, which is less than the gear. Odd that it has more tonnage than the gear. Yeah, again, there's that 190mm plate and that 90mm upper belt. That she has a lot more tonnage than the gear, but has less HP than her. That's typically, again, what dictates the ship's HP is the tonnage. 37% torpedo damage reduction. And I skipped right over. No, I did not. Okay, the aircraft's for artillery. Yeah, hybrid ship, weird. Alright, so the torpedo bombers, you get one flight of them. The individual planes have 1,710 HP. Their cruising speed is 174 knots. Maximum speed with the boost is 214. You get a 20-second engine boost, 40 seconds for that to reload. 3 planes per flight, and you get them in 80 seconds. That's really not bad at all. And keep in mind that with hybrid ships, when you launch them, that preparation time, that starts after you launch them. But the bombs, you get 1 bomb per payload, 4,533 maximum torpedo damage. I'm sorry, torpedoes. I'm reading it like it says bombs. But anyway, yeah. 1 torpedo per payload, 55 knot top speed for the torpedo, 3-kilometer range, and a 591 meter arming distance. Okay, so that sounds like the usual. Yeah, that's the super secret rocket torpedo that the Germans get, like on like the Richthofen and such. All right, and then you get your bombing squadron with 1,530 HP per plane, 174 knot cruising speed, max speed of 214. It's literally the same planes. Yeah, the planes are exactly the same, except for the hit points of the bombers being a little bit lower. All right, but you get 6 planes per squadron this time, but you gotta wait 300 seconds for the bombers to come off of cooldown. And they are HE bombs as well. Each plane gets a bomb, so 6 bombs per attack. With a maximum rating of 13,700, that's quite a lot of alpha per strike. 68mm HE pin and a 78% fire chance per bomb. Yeesh, that's pretty rough. All right. And those are the aircraft. I guess we'll see how they perform in battle. But the guns now, you get 2x3 of the 305mm guns with a 15-second reload time base. That's pretty good. I mean, given you only have 6 guns on the ship, yeah. With a 180 time of 25 seconds, maximum dispersion of 203 meters, and a maximum range of 18.5 kilometers. The HE shell does 3,600 maximum damage, 27% fire chance per shell, 76mm HE pin with the 305s, and those come out the tubes at 865 meters a second. The AP shell does a maximum damage of 9,500, an initial velocity of 865 meters a second. Comparing that to the gears, 305mm, it is again the same. Okay, and back to the Hildebrand. Alright, and the secondary guns, you do get 16 105mm guns on the ship, and I'm assuming that is 8 per side, so 1, 2, 3, 4, yep, 8 per side, 8 mounts per side. So the 105s reload in 3.4 seconds base, they have a maximum range of 8.3 kilometers base, and then they have a maximum damage rating of 1,200, with a 5% chance of causing a fire per shell, 26mm of pin, and initial velocity of 900 meters a second. The 150s, again, you get 8 of these boys per side, so I'm assuming 4 mounts per side. That is what it looks like. And you get a reload time of 7.5 seconds on them, 8.3 kilometer maximum range, and a 1,700 maximum damage rating, along with an 8% fire chance, 38mm of pin, and initial velocity of 875 meters a second. Like, I don't know, that's a lot of secondaries, and that's some quite big secondaries on a cruiser. But it's like, man, with this giant tumor in the middle that you can get farmed off of, I don't know if you'll really be able to use the secondaries that much. I mean, they have a really nice base range of 8.3 kilometers already, but I don't know if they'd be worth a full build. All right, a defense rating of 83. You get 10x2 of the 30mm flak guns, 30 flak 45. And then you get 6x2 of the 55mm flat guns. And then the 105mm guns are... Wait, these aren't flat guns, are they? No, these are just the AA guns. Then the 105mm guns are dual purpose. And the 150s, of course, are not. Maneuverability, top speed of 34 knots with an 880 meter turning circle radius, and a shift time of 14.1 seconds. Concealment is 15.5 kilometers base. Oof, yeesh. Alright. Well, you should be able to get that down actually a fair amount. We'll see what happens. Alright, so of course, consumables, hydroacoustic search, pretty standard German consumable. 6 kilometer hydro, which runs for 120 seconds. Nice German long-range, long-duration hydro. 3 charges of your repair party base, which regenerate 318 HP per second for 28 seconds, and then cools down in 80 seconds. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and put a build on this ship, and well, we'll see you guys right back here. I don't know how I feel about this, but let me show you what I've done here. So I've taken main armaments mod 1 to keep the main battery guns in the fight, but I actually might change that out here in a second for the secondary battery, because yeah, the secondary battery, you'll see. So the main armaments mod 1, this reduces the chance of the main battery guns becoming incapacitated by 20%, and buffs their survivability by 50%, it reduces their repair time by 20%. And then we went with Damage Con mod 1, because, of course, the Hildebrand, I do believe, unless it's an odd one out for whatever reason, does have the battleship burn time. So fires do suck. I mean, we want to reduce the chance of that happening. This reduces the chance of that happening by 5%, and then 3% for flooding. And then, yes, I did go with secondary battery mod 1. We'll get there in a second as to why, but this gives us a 20% buff to the secondary battery firing range and a 20% buff to the dispersion of the shells. And then we went with Air Groups mod 3. Why not Fire Prevention mod 2? Because, well, this not only increases the speed of the aircraft, but it decreases the prep time by 5% for the aircraft, while increasing the HP of the squadron by 15%. And again, hold on to your questions. Concealment Systems mod 1 for a 10% buff to the concealment of the ship and the squadrons as well, and a 5% debuff to the shells that are shot at you. So you're stealthier, and the shells that get shot at you are less accurate, so pretty good pickup there. And then, yes, we did go with Auxiliary Armaments mod 2 for a 20% buff to the secondary battery reload time, and a 50% buff to the AA damage, the damage from these shells as well. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just do this right here. So, Sealord, if you're secondary building the ship, it's got to be good at secondaries, right? Well, on paper, it's looking pretty promising, because with the modules... Oh, Lucians, by the way, Lucians is here, say hi. So with Lucians, I've gone with Last Stand. This ensures that any of the steering gears and engines, or when the steering gears of the engine gets knocked out, they're still going to keep working at a reduced rate. Then I went with Consumables Enhancements, which gives a 10% buff to the runtime of Hydroacoustic Search, which is already pretty long, so why not make it last longer? And then he has Pack-a-Punch, which increases the firing range of the secondary battery guns by 20% and increases the torpedo damage by 15%, which... it's a good question of whether or not that affects the torpedoes from the planes. We'll find out here in a second. And then Concealment Expert for our first 4-point skill. Going back, I would then, of course, take Adrenaline Rush, where you get a 0.2% buff to the reload time of the main battery guns, the secondary battery guns, and the airstrikes as you take damage. Again, not sure if this applies to the planes, but we'll find out. And then Superintendent, which gives us an additional charge of our heal and hydro. So having one more charge of each of those is pretty nice. And then Survivability Expert for a nice dump of HP per tier. So we get another 450 HP per tier. So another 4,050 HP, which I think that actually gets us up to the gears HP. So over the gears HP now, okay, and that gear did have a commander on, so that's probably what was going on there. So the Hildebrand does have more HP than the gear. Makes sense. Alright, so I was incorrect earlier. And then for a 1-point skill, I went with Gun Feeder for a 40% buff to the time it takes to switch between AP and HE, and then Grease the Gears for a 20% buff to the 180 time of the turrets. Maybe not the most, well-tuned build for Lucians here on this ship, but this is kind of my, I think this is actually my, not shield, but my other, what was the funny, I'm probably looking right at it, from the Schroeder. Yeah, this is my Schroeder build for Lucians here, but it might work out here. So why the secondaries? Well, you see, dear viewer, with the build that you have into the secondaries here, the secondary range is now 12.5 kilometers, the 2.5 second reload time on the 105s, and a 5.7 second reload time on the 150s. The concealment is also 12.5 kilometers. So this means if we are spotted in the Hildebrand, we are in secondary range in the Hildebrand. So that sounds like fun. Now, did that buff the torpedo damage taking a Pack-a-Punch here? I would like to think that only applies to the ship launch torpedoes. 5,213. Let me put Lucian's on Siegfried here for a second. Here, hold him, Siegfried. So is it 5,200 and change with the Hildebrand's torps? And it's, oh my god, it does. Oh lord. Alright. What have you done here, Wargaming? Okay, I'm going to go ahead, take the Hildebrand into battle. I'll meet you guys there with a voiceover review. I'm itching to see how the hell this ship is going to do. So I'll meet you guys there in a second. Alright guys, voiceover Sealord here. And well, the Hildebrand. After playing her for quite some time this afternoon, I must say it does seem like someone at Wargaming said, hey, let's make a ship that can proc all of Lucian's skills at once, and thus we got the Hildebrand. So, I mean, it really does have, like, every single German gimmick bolted to it, like, quite literally. You have secondaries, you have the planes with the, the fast, with the high top speed, and the, special German torpedoes. It has a hydroacoustic search. It's got the German armor and all that jazz, and, oh yeah, I already said Hydra already, but anyway, yeah, it's got all of that on one ship. Which leads to a very, very odd case when it comes to hybrid ships. You see, many a time, myself and others will often say that when you are in a hybrid ship, remember it is in the Kearsarge's case, remember it is a battleship with a flight deck, not a carrier with guns. But in the case of the Hildebrand, it really feels like it's a carrier that just so happens to have some main battery guns because, oh my god, this thing is nuts when it comes to the planes. It really just feels like another aircraft carrier that you can occasionally fire the main battery guns of, which is very weird. Because you usually, of course, the hybrid ships, like the Kearsarge again, for example, you play it like a battleship, and you launch the planes when there's an opportune time to use the planes. But with the Hildebrand, the main damage source is often the planes. The torpedo planes will feel very, 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 very familiar to anyone that's played, the higher tier German aircraft carriers that have those, high 55 knot torpedoes. Again, like the Richthofen, or I don't think the Immelmann gets it, but the Richthofen does. If you play the Richthofen, these torpedoes should feel very, very comfortable to you. And they did to me, because the German CVs are one of the few CVs lines that I've actually played a bunch of, because they have, the goofy secondary guns and all that jazz. So the torpedo planes were just a really easy source of, like, 12k damage every 72 seconds with my build. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go out and get a free, 12k damage from, whatever poor sap I want to. Because, again, with the speed of the torpedoes and the arming distance, they're really, really easy to hit. Again, pretty much anything that you want to hit, bar some of the zippier DDs, right? But most cruisers and battleships, it doesn't really matter what they do. You're going to at least land one or two torpedoes. Now, of course, the torpedo planes are very frail, as, again, they are with the Richthofen. So there are cases where when you got like 3 or 4 ships sitting on top of each other, you probably aren't going to get them off. But if you find just 1 or 2 ships, or if the ships don't really have that fantastic of AA, yeah, you can get them off pretty consistently. And then, of course, you have the bombers. The HE dive bombers that can very well just obliterate most not so well armored ships with a single drop. By obliterate, I mean they're going to do, like, again, 10k-ish damage, probably start 2 fires, if not 3 or 4 fires, which obviously is going to ruin that target ship's day. And thankfully those do have, again, that long 300-second load time, so that one's in check. But I don't know why they just said, yeah, just let them go to town with the torpedo bombers, because good lord. What I would often do with the Hildebrand is I would find an island or something to kind of chill by for the first couple of minutes of the game, and then I would use my torpedo planes to kind of scout that side of the map, and if it was okay to move up a bit closer to the action, I would, and then really, again, just use the planes, because the torpedo planes have a 72-second load time with, again, the build that I was using. So with hybrid ships, when you launch those aircraft, that timer starts from that second you launch them. So by the time you really get to the target, unless they're right in front of you, do your attack run and have the camera fly back to the ship, you've maybe got like 20 seconds left on the load time for your next set of planes. So it's like, oh, this is like shorter than most battleship reload times. So I'm just going to wait for 20 more seconds, get my next flight of planes out, and then there we go. And if I could scooch up from behind the island that I was at and use the forward main battery guns in on the action, go for it. The secondaries are a bit of a mixed bag. Yes, they do have that 12.5 kilometer range with a build and a pretty decent reload time, but they don't really seem to have any type of improved accuracy. When you are going up against like battleship sized targets, it seems to still get a decent amount of shells on target, so it's kind of usable, but against like cruisers and such at longer ranges, doesn't really seem to really be worth the build. At closer ranges, though, it kind of puts in the work. So considering you don't have any rear turrets with the Hildebrand, it does make sense to keep them there. And again, since this is a cruiser and you can fit mostly cruiser modules with the exception of I forget what it's called, like the air group mod 2 mod. Yeah, it doesn't really seem to be too much of a trouble to keep the modules on here, because that's what's doing most of the work anyway. And with my commander build, I was mostly happy with the skills. I might swap some of them around a little bit, but I didn't really see much problem with leaving the build on the ship, because, again, if a destroyer or something does pop up close to you, there's enough of them and they have a good enough reload time to kind of handle them. And again, it's the German 105s and the German 150s, so they're pinning a pretty decent amount for their caliber at the tier. So it seemed to be working okay for the most part with me. The armor, though, it is a mixed bag, and it seems to be one extreme or the other. With the Hildebrand, I was either doing just fine, because again, the whole armor is the Aegir armor. If you played the Aegir or the Siegfried, you know how to use it, and in most cases it was all right. But every now and then you had that clever player that, they put 2 and 2 together and they realize, oh yeah, that giant hangar, I can just pin that and obliterate half of that guy's HP, and it does. I ran across a Colombo, and he nailed my hangar, and oh my god, that was like 2/3 of the ship's HP right there. So yeah, the belt armor's good. Again, it's the Aegir armor, but that giant hangar is so easy to pin. And when you're talking about tier 10, of course, again, the Colombo's there. I can't think of the name of it right now, but the tier 10 Italian battle cruiser's there with its 457 millimeter sap. And I mean, anybody really with any decent AP can absolutely chunk the crap out of you, because it's only 19 millimeters thick, but it's such a huge space that it's probably going to arm most of those shells. Now, there was a case or two where the AP did just overpin because they were blasting me from like 8 kilometers in the hangar deck. Yeah, but at range, by the time the shells get there, they've slowed down. They're probably going to arm on that hangar deck, so that's going to suck. And again, the flight deck's 30 millimeters thick, so by tier 10, every cruiser, every destroyer is trying to make sure their guns can pin 32 millimeters of armor, so that can still get pinned by the by those guys. And 457 millimeter plus battleships, they can overmatch 30 millimeters, so you got to keep that in mind too. So overall, Hildebrand's a very odd package to be the first tier 10 German cruiser, because it feels like a gear. It's surprisingly fast and maneuverable, and that screams, along with the secondaries, play me at close range, right? But you don't really want to do that because of the hangar and the flight, the hangar bay and the flight deck is so easy to just get absolutely obliterated in those two areas. So you really do wind up just playing it like a mini carrier, which is very odd to again have this as the first tier 10 German large cruiser. So it's just a very weird ship that if you're good in German CVs, you'll do great here, right? Again, the torpedo planes are amazingly consistent. You have the great HE bombers, and you have like German carrier secondaries, almost not quite as Graf Zeppelin levels of secondaries, but you have them. So you definitely do have to be more of a CV guy rather than a cruiser guy to make the Hildebrand work. So if you were going to pick this up and just say, screw it, I was going to play as a secondary build with the main battery guns, not really use the planes, you can't really, because that's kind of what it's all about. The main battery guns are atrocious when it comes to accuracy, and it's so bad, I don't think really slapping the dispersion module on there will make, that big of a difference to where they'll be that much better. Now, you can put the dispersion module on and the reload module on. You have like a 13.5 second reload with 6 305mm guns, which, yeah, it sounds nice and all, but the accuracy, again, still with like that 7% buff to them, I don't think it's going to do that much, work to the dispersion to make it, viable to go full main battery and just say screw the planes. You're going to have to use the planes because it appears that, well, that's what Wargame wants you to do with the ship. So much of it is designed around that. So, yeah, if you're a good CV player, you're good with the Richthofen's torpedo planes, and I think they're the Parzifal's dive bombers. Yeah, you can do some work in the Hildebrand, and if you're really good with the torpedoes, and you got Lucians, you can get that 8% buff to the reload time of the planes. So I think that gets you darn near like 67, 66 seconds with the plane's reload time, which is just bonkers at that point, right? So it's just like a never-ending source of torpedo aircraft. One thing I was able to do with the Hildebrand pretty consistently was use the torpedo aircraft to force ships to go broadside to me, and then use the main battery guns to, deliver 6 305mm shells to their broadside. But again, with how accurate the guns are, it wasn't always 6. It was usually like 2, maybe 3 at times. So yeah, but you can definitely do that here in the Hildebrand as well. And if you have Lucians, you get the 35 armament hits with the aircraft. You get that 8% buff to the regeneration time of the planes. You get the 100 secondary battery hits. You get that 15% buff to the secondary battery guns reload time. You get the free hill with 3 spotting ribbons, which is so easy to do in the Hildebrand. So you get unlimited heals with this cruiser if you have Lucians on him. So, God, yeah, if you have Lucians and you're like a German dude and you're good with all of the German tech tree, this is definitely a ship you can make work and put in some serious work with. Is it worth what you gotta give up to get it right now? You either have to get really lucky in the German cruiser containers or pay, I think it's like 50,000 doubloons in the sequential bundle in order to be sure to get the Hildebrand. It's not worth that much, fellas. I don't think they've stated exactly how the Hildebrand is going to be released in the future, but 50k dubs, not really. Maybe if you picked up some doubloons from the super containers during the anniversary event, you want to pick up a couple of these German cruiser containers to just try your luck. Sure, I got lucky and got it on my 13th container, which thank God, because, shoo, man, if I had to go all the way to 50 containers, that was this is not going to be a cheap video if that was the case. So thankfully, again, I got it on the 13th container. But yeah, I definitely don't think it's worth gambling 50k dubs away in order to try and acquire her right now. If she comes down the line for like Cole or something, sure, be a good pickup, or even to just release it outright. And again, what you see on the screen is something that you're interested in. Sure, but definitely not for what they're asking for it right now. It's definitely, again, in my humble opinion, not really worth it. So, guys, let me know what you guys think about the Hildebrand in the comments down below. If you've played her, what do you think? You've played against her? Did you find her to be that menacing, or is she just kind of, in my opinion, it really depends upon the player. Again, if they put in the time with the German CVs and are used to the planes, she can be pretty terrifying, especially with that regeneration rate on the aircraft. But man, I got focused so hard when I was selling this thing around. It seems that everybody and their mom and their mom's dog wants you dead. When you're playing this thing for, again, obvious reasons. The plane spam is very, very much real. But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday, wonderful rest of your week. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.